I think I was muted too. I think everything was muted. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Friday Night Chill. This is episode 15. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, man. Can you believe I've been doing this for 15 episodes? Because I don't.
It shows. It really shows.
But yeah, anyway, like I was saying, but you couldn't hear it. Yeah, Colin hopped out of the chat and right onto the show tonight. I have another guest, so hi, Colin.
Yep.
How are you?
Yep. Hi. Long time watcher, first time guest. Yep. I'm coming from live via satellite from scenic Baltimore, Maryland.
Woo!
Ooh, yeah.
Let's get woos in the chat for Maryland.
Ooh, yeah. Baltimore, greatest city in America.
I don't know about all that.
That's what the park benches say.
Oh, okay. Well, if the park bench says it, then it must be right.
Right, yeah. I didn't know that one until I got here, and yet
Yeah,
here we are. Yes, Baltimore, Maryland is a mid-Atlantic state with some really freaky borders. It kind of looks like it's it's a funky looking state. Yeah,
it is very weird. It's also very tiny.
it is very tiny. Also, it is quite humid. I've had a time putting together outfits since I got out here because as soon as I step outside, I sweat right through them before anyone can actually see me in them. So,
That's a fun time.
sure, why not? As soon as
Well,
I step outside.
well, fantastic. So I brought Colin on because they have experience in TV production, and I kind of just
Hmm?
wanted to dive into that. Just because, we got the strikes going on right now still. Hopefully, not much longer because they're supposed to be going into negotiations again next week. Um, we'll see. But yeah, I think not a lot of people. I think a lot of people assume a lot of stuff about like the strike and what people are doing and like what kind of people are striking, as opposed to you know what it actually is. Um, I think there's a lot of misconceptions where it's the middle class people in film and TV and all that stuff are often forgotten about, but all those names on the credits in any movie or TV show or whatever, you know, not everyone's making a killing, like the top billed actors and executives and all them. It's just
Yeah.
normal ass people, just kind of doing a job. So, Colin had some experience in that field, so I just wanted to have them come on so that they could share their perspective and what experience they have and just kind of how that all looks and works and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm really excited to talk about it. I've only been in Baltimore a couple of weeks, but I've grown up in Southern California, so I've been working on film sets since I was a teenager. Started like independent or just like doing stuff with my friends for YouTube. I've worked on independent projects. I've worked on like actual late night talk shows. And like most recently, before I moved to Baltimore, I can say that I worked as a television producer for PBS. I did produce a pilot presentation, which was part because I was also a student at San Bernardino Valley College, and their their major for film, television, and media study works in tandem with our local PBS station, KVCR. And so I produced a pilot presentation for that last year. And I've also worked on other projects for PBS, in particular their summer concert series. I ran camera for that, got to learn an awful lot about how a television station is run because PBS does a lot of local interest stuff, so not really narrative stuff like you would see on on one of the big networks like CBS or NBC. It's just a lot of like, oh, this is what's going on in your area. It's public access, so the idea is that anyone from the public can go to the station and create content. And in the last couple of years, I was there before I moved to Baltimore. There was a real push to make sure that like San Bernardino, Riverside to a lesser extent, but like mostly Inland Empire stuff, like knew, hey, you can come out here, you can film with us. They're still doing a lot of like it's a film school, so there's still like a lot of narrative projects that are coming out from there too. More stuff produced for PBS, more narrative stuff, and it's not like this stuff is not does not fall under like the same restrictions for the writer strike and for the actor strike because these programs are non-union and again it's local interest stuff, so there's not a lot of scripted stuff going in. It's going to be a lot of documentary or a lot of like interviews, local interest. Yeah.
All right. I never even thought about like just PBS like just being like, oh yeah, anyone can just kind of walk in here and make their own thing if they really wanted to.
Oh yeah. That's the public in public
Yeah, yeah.
broadcasting.
I mean, I
It's
guess it makes sense. It is funded by viewers like you, you know.
thank you.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. A lot of people really don't know that, and I really do gotta sing the praises of my professors and the people that I worked with at PBS. Just like they really are trying to make sure, like, remind people that this is what your taxes are paying for,
Hmm.
and it's not just like documentaries and stuff. It's like I say we, I don't work there anymore, but KVCR has this, it's also tied into NPR, National Public Radio. The two are operating in tandem out of San Bernardino. And there's also FNX, the First Nations Experience. This is a branch of PBS that is uh, trying to reach out to the Native American population of really a lot more of the West Coast than you would think. I remember when I first started running camera there, someone had told me that yeah, something that they had to take into consideration during the start of the pandemic. This is back in 2021, so we're only a year out from when lockdown started,
Hmm.
that one thing that FNX has to take into consideration is like how do you get the message out about a global pandemic shutting the world down to people on reservations all over the West Coast,
Huh.
some of whom probably don't speak English at all, this by choice. So like, how do you connect with them? Like, don't speak English at all, but also speaking languages that only a few dozen people speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. And and again, it's also school. I think that's just what I've seen from the biggest difference from my time going to school out there and doing all that work with PBS and through Valley College is and versus here in Maryland is that there is television and media and entertainment is one of the biggest economic drivers in California, it's not so much like that out here.
Right.
So a lot of like the stuff that I was learning, a lot of the experiences that I got in California, I am here in Maryland now, and a lot of my classmates don't have that necessarily. Not that they're like, not that there's anything that my current classmates could not do. It's just like
No, but I mean,
not as much.
it's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Not as much emphasis is placed on that out here.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like I'm here in Maryland now, and I'm just seeing like, oh yeah, y'all aren't working in a television station regularly as film students. Wait, what?
What? Say what? That's crazy.
Word? I know. But no, it's like I am excited to be here. So yeah, I moved to Maryland at middle of August because I got into Morgan State University's screenwriting and animation program. It is the only Morgan State University is a historically black college. It's the only HBCU that has an animation major, which is a major draw to me. And yes, I've been out here and trying to get used to it, and I do miss home. I do miss California, because yeah, I'm seeing like a lot of people that I went to school with, or seeing a lot of my friends and the stuff that they're working on out there. Well, there's actually I shouldn't say there's not too much work that a lot of them are doing
Yeah.
because of the strikes, but just like seeing the work that they are doing, they are able to do. It's like, oh man, I do miss it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't miss you or anything. No, it's fine. Yeah, we're cool.
Oh,
We're good.
oh, whatever. Fine. I guess I'll just stay in Maryland then, all the delicious seafood out here.
Fine, be that way then. uh,
Oh, they'll get along just fine without me.
yeah. Luckily, we live in 2023, so other than like a time zone jump, I don't think really much has changed in terms of us
Yeah,
conversing.
yeah, no. Technology is wonderful that way. Sometimes it doesn't feel like I left at all.
Yeah.
Uh, one of my friends, we were talking the other day about how even though we're on different coasts, our schedules are more aligned than they were when we lived 20 minutes away from each other. Because she's an early riser
Uh,
and I have to get up early for class, so it's like by the time I'm getting ready to head into class, she's getting ready to head into work, so it's like, oh, okay.
yeah, Colin has sent me on multiple occasions the past few weeks, like just messages at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, this is great and all. Like, I'm glad I'm seeing this now, but also, hey, I'm not up. I'm not up at all.
Yeah, I know, I know. That's,
I'm not even
that's like
close to
something
being
I'm
up.
still getting used to. I'm like, wait, how come you're not laughing at my dank memes? And it's like, oh, right, it's 5 in the morning for you.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting up at like 8 the earliest, bro.
Oh man, that would be so nice. I miss getting up at 8 o'clock because I gotta be out the door by 8 o'clock.
uh,
Uh, yeah,
oh well.
yeah,
So you've been doing like all this film stuff for quite a while.
yeah.
So what was, I guess, sort of a myth that you, I guess, believed that got debunked once you actually like worked on a set?
Um, I think for me, the first like big-ish project. It was an indie film that I did like summer 2019 called Take Me to Tarzana. I worked as a production assistant on that. It was on. It's available to stream on Amazon, and it starred an actor who was in a pretty big movie back in the day. And I think for me, the conception was that was like my first time meeting an actor and just like engaging with them, who like had a like really big hit.
Hmm.
Uh, was that like just because you were in one of the biggest movies of all time,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you were paid for it necessarily. And like that's something I kind of understood since, we're both Power Rangers fans.
Yeah.
And
So if
so
anybody
we were
understands like unfair actor treatment, I think Power Ranger fans have a pretty good grasp on that.
right. And but I guess like for me, I had just assumed, well, Power Rangers is famously a low budget show.
Hmm.
It has union issues, and the first season you didn't know it was going to be hit or anything. But for this actor that I worked with, who was in that movie, it was like really one of those. It's a big movie. It's an insanely quotable movie, and for its star-studded cast, I guess I just assumed that like, oh yeah, you must have made out like a bandit with that
Hmm.
movie. And it's like, nope, nope, that's not how that works. You still have to work. You
Hmm.
still have to secure gigs, and even if you're working in television where you get residuals, that's something that a lot has. There's like a lot of that's a pretty big part of the conversation with the SAG strike is how residuals work. So if you don't know, a residual is basically if you appear on a TV show, you are paid for the time that you were filming the show. The way it works is you are paid for your time on set. You're paid from when you get there, when you're there, whenever time it is on the call sheet, to when you wrap. You're going to be paid for that. But you can also negotiate for residuals, which is basically every time the episode or the show that you appeared in airs, you will get paid for that as well. Not as much as you were paid when you were on set, but still, the idea is you will be able to get money from that appearance. And this is every time it's aired. So, for example, if you are like let's use the Big Bang Theory. If you are Jim Parsons and you negotiate and your contract has residuals for the Big Bang Theory, Big Bang Theory is played on lots of different TV stations at any given time of day.
Yeah.
So let's say he gets $5 for every episode of the Big Bang Theory. So if it's one of those marathons on TBS, and there's also like if it's also airing on Nick at Night, I don't know, the Big Bang Theory airs on Nick at Night. You could like come out with
Yeah. I
like
mean, who even knows? Syndication's wild.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So you could. The idea is that the residual checks that you are getting from your appearance on TV should sustain you until your next job, whether that's on another TV show or in a movie or maybe something else.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so a lot of actors whose names you know and recognize, they rely on those residual checks
Hmm.
because uh, people tend to hear that if you're an actor, that your net worth, like if you Google an actor's net worth, it'll say like, oh, Taraji P. Henson's net worth is $40 million.
Yeah.
And yeah, you tend to think that, oh, that means you've got $40 million walking around money.
Right.
Uh, no, that is not
That's
the case
just
at all. I've
like
actually,
it's
yeah,
not even real. It's just like an estimation, a
yeah.
vague
Uh,
estimation at best.
and remember, net worth is also including your debt too. So like,
Yeah.
who knows how much of that is like. And it's yeah. I don't. Funny enough. Okay, so last year, my one of my cousins graduated from Howard University. Go Bisons, HU. And Taraji P. Henson gave the commencement speech at one of the graduation ceremonies, and she was talking about how for her Oscar-nominated role in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, I forget the exact amount, but let's say she made $100,000. And so, well, yeah, $100,000 for one movie for a few weeks' work. That's great, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: $100,000, you got to pay taxes on that. So
Gotta pay your
there's that.
agent. Gotta pay
You got to pay managers. You got to pay
managers.
publicists.
Yeah.
I don't. This was that movie came out in what 2009, 11, somewhere in that time range.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
were in high
know.
school still, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if she had a social media person back then, but they probably have bills to pay too. So
Yeah.
then she has like other just like bills the same as you, me, and anyone else.
Yeah.
Mortgage, health insurance, school fees for her kid. Um, yeah, $100,000 when all of those people are when all those people are banking on your success, it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why you'll also see some actors this is for like those big actors. You might remember when Scarlett Johansson sued Disney a few years ago because she had been promised a certain percentage of the box office sales from Black Widow, but because of the pandemic, that didn't happen, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't get as much money as she was owed,
Mm-hmm.
which means that all of those other people that like those same people that George B. Henson paid, the same people that now Scarlett Johansson has to pay aren't getting paid too. So it's like there's a lot.
Yeah. It's
There's a
more than
lot.
just the big celebrity involved when those things are happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and again, those are like the big actors, but like most actors and most people involved in production, those are just actors. There's, for like television production, movie production, just like all of it it's a very collaborative process. There's a lot of people who put in their time, their energy, most importantly, their bodies to, excuse me, get a TV show or movie made. And so it's like the fact that there's so many moving parts and so many different people working on these productions that the fact that anything gets made well, let alone something that gets made that a lot of people like and enjoy and talk about, is pretty amazing. I was working on this one production where a lot of people were like coming and going pretty quickly because their own like drama and stuff. But yeah, no, it's like I remember I was at a seminar at school, and this one speaker was saying like really it just comes down to who do you want to be on set with for 12 hours a day. That's the other thing too, is that these days on set are long.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really long.
It's a really long time to be around the same people.
Exactly. And you don't want to be on set with somebody who causes drama or who is unprofessional or who is just a pain to work with. I know the term like difficult to work with is a very loaded term. I'm not going to downplay that, but yeah, if like your director or your crew is not capable of working with one or two people, you're like a lot of times there's not gonna be a point where they sit down with you and say, oh hey, we need to talk about this. A lot of times there's not really HR on set like this. It's just your name just won't be on the call sheet for the next day. You'll just be like, thank you, your services are no longer needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's mostly so the big positions that people, so there's like above the line work and below the line work. When you hear the term above the line workers, you're thinking the director, the writer, the big name actor who is going to be who people go to see the project for. But then most of the production is below the line workers. So your production assistants like me, your assistant director, your script supervisor, the people you don't immediately think of. Like, I'm sure you can tell me. I'm sure you can tell me who was in Black Panther, but can you tell me who their first assistant director was?
Oh, that was Martin. I remember him. He was great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, you know Martin.
I know Martin. He's so great. I love
Oh
him.
my gosh, small world. But yeah. The people who are like really grinding and trying to like doing the day-to-day stuff, this is where a lot of people start out in the industry, and then there's like for writers, a lot of people who are getting their start in the industry will start in writers rooms. That's a big one too. So this is, to be clear, this is mostly how it works in America. I know that in other markets like the UK, it works very differently. But the way it works here is you will have, like, when you're watching a TV show and you see the credits, you will see, like, one person credited for writing the episode.
Hmm.
And they did write the episode. Like, I'm not gonna downplay their efforts or their hard work. But the way it usually works is you have a writer will write an episode and then bring it to a room full of about 10 or so people, and they are going to work together to refine the episode, say like this joke doesn't work, try this one, or this line is this is going to give away too much information, we need to downplay it, or oh no, we can't have this character show up because they were written out like in the previous season and we can't get the actor back for them anyway. It's you know, it's a process. This is where a lot of some of the most well-known writers for television have gotten their start in writers' rooms.
Yeah.
Those monologues that people love from late night hosts are made by these teams of writers' rooms,
Hmm.
and you know, you are paid for being in a writer's room. The goal, like, it's very much it's a career goal thing to be like to get your name as like the singular name of a writer of an episode.
Hmm.
For just like on the flip side, in the UK it works a little differently. So if you have ever noticed that British TV shows tend to have fewer episodes,
Yeah.
like you could have a show running for 10 seasons, but each season is only like 4 or 5 episodes. It's because the way it works over there is that really it's just like one person, usually the creator of the show, is also writing all of the episodes. So it happened with Fleabag. I know it happened with Peep Show too. This is why, like in America, you can have entire seasons running for 22 episodes, or at least ideally,
Ideally,
like,
yeah. In a
yes.
perfect world, something like
Streaming,
that would be
yeah,
great.
streaming kind of threw a wrench into that, but like up until very recently, the standard length of a television season is 22 episodes. You'll have the first batch of episodes premiere like around September. You'll have a mid-season break, and then you'll bring things back in the spring. Usually, this is just the standard run. That during that mid-season break, you'll probably introduce a new TV show. A pilot season
Hmm.
of a TV show is about 13 episodes, and yeah, but like a full season order, 22 episodes. You have an entire team of writers working to make sure that like all of those episodes run smoothly, consistently, and are entertaining. Yeah, above
Right.
all else.
Hmm. Well.
I know that was a lot. yes.
No, I mean, like, that's good. I mean, like, you're the one with experience here. I'm just the nub who brought you on the show to ask you a bunch of
Oh
questions.
no, yeah, yeah. And then,
Because,
well, then there's also like there's so again going to our love of Power Rangers a little
hmm
bit. At the this is how Power Rangers has been run for a very long time. And it's not just Power Rangers, like other like much more action oriented or stunt heavy shows will also do this.
hmm
So there's first unit work and second unit work.
hmm
um, this is so let's say for example you have Power Rangers, where about a third of the work is already done for you since they are importing footage from Super Sentai.
yeah,
You still have another 2/3 of work to fill up. So
yeah,
you would have the out of suit scenes with like Jason, Zack, and Trini, and then the in suit scenes where they're in their Mighty Morphin suits.
hmm
So the first unit will be where you have the main actors that people associate with. So that would be where Walter Jones and Tui Trang would have been. They are doing first unit work. They're getting all their lines recorded. They're on the school set.
hmm
Um, or maybe they're out doing some fight scenes. But at the same time they're doing that, there is another branch of the production called the second unit that's doing all the in suit, the stunts, the explosions, the bike stunts, and everything.
yeah,
Um,
all the villain stuff.
yeah, the stuff that you don't need the actors like faces for.
Yeah,
This is the same with like another like a movie like Mad Max Fury Road.
okay,
So you could have the scenes where, um, excuse me. So for example, so with the Power Rangers example, first and second unit stuff is done entirely in California.
hmm
But with Mad Max Fury Road, first unit work was being done in Australia, while second unit work was being done in South Africa.
oh,
So yeah, yeah, these productions can be like big, big. If you've watched some of these movies, you'll see like all of these different countries, like Film Queensland or the Spanish Film Commission or whatever, like their little logos during the end credits. Because yeah, while you might have a big actor like Chris Hemsworth filming his scenes in Australia, you'll have a stunt crew in Morocco getting some scenes in a marketplace or something like
mm,
that. That's second unit work too.
hmm. That's interesting. That is something I never really considered because, I mean, you do see a bunch of like those different logos and shit whenever you're like looking at movies or TV shows or whatever, and it's like all these places. And I'm like, at what point were like sometimes I'll look at that and I'll be like, at what point were they even in this other place? Because like all of it, like
What was there?
continuity wise, like looks like it all flows together. So
Yeah. And the other thing too that's really important to remember is that when you're actually on set, that's the time that you're on the clock. That's when you're actually being paid.
hmm
When a production wraps, typically you're not being paid anymore. So when actors or directors or whoever is doing press, they're not being paid for that.
hmm
Like when you have, so if you have someone going to do an interview on The View or God help us, the Drew Barrymore show, they're not getting paid for that. That's press that they're doing for their project.
yeah. So it's
So if
basically
you
like
have,
included in their rate, basically when they book to
yeah,
the gig.
yeah, a friend of mine, Chris, if you're in the chat and watching, hi. I'm gonna
Hi,
use your
Chris. Maybe
story
you're
here.
here. We got five people.
Um,
We got three people watching, so maybe.
Okay, so yeah, my a very good friend of mine, Chris, he has done worked on press tours for some big projects, and so he had explained to me that when you have, let's say, for example, you have Kiki Palmer doing press for Nope. Um, if you've ever watched those videos where it's like, GQ or Vogue or Hi, I'm Kiki Palmer and this is my career. A lot of times those are all done in the same day on the same sound stage in the exact same location
Yeah.
where you'll have all of these different press outlets are going to come in. They get a couple minutes or an hour to like get all of their questions out or go over like get their major points out of the way,
Hmm.
and then boom, you move on to the next one.
Right.
So you could be like, so sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you could have a situation where like let's say GQ was the first one to get to Michael B. Jordan for Creed 3. Well, GQ ran a little long now, so Entertainment Weekly, you don't have as much time to get your questions out of the way.
Right.
Um, yeah. And again, this is still something, this is also like these press junkets are still things that really run on like the sound operators who were hired for that day for I don't know $600 a day or whatever their rate was for the day, for production assistants
Hmm.
who are getting, let's be honest, minimum wage plus tip.
Yeah.
I when I was at I was going to school in California. I think it was there was this award show. There were a couple of award shows that some of the students were encouraged to do. I didn't do it because it wasn't great money, but yeah. So for like 12-hour days of being at this award show and being escorts for these major celebrities and everything, these production assistants are getting like $200 or $300 for the day, and that's like that's minimum wage and tip. That's not great
Yeah.
for 12 hours of work. Then when you factor in things like, gas and the strain on your car and everything.
Oh
'Cause that's
yeah.
another thing too. A lot of these below the line workers, they might not be. LA is expensive,
Yeah.
and they might be able to afford to live there. So you've got a lot of people driving in from Inland Empire or Orange County or other places to work,
Right.
and that takes a lot of strain on your car, especially when like your car is the only way you can work.
Right.
Yeah. Um, and so it's like it's really television production. It's a fascinating process. It's work that I love. It really is work worth doing.
Hmm.
Television is such a powerful medium. But yeah, I think a lot of people, there's a lot that people don't really get about
Yeah.
it. Especially with like major intellectual properties like Power Rangers, like Barbie, like Transformers.
Hmm.
It's not just, there's like, you also have to take into consideration that people who are, because these things, like these people, the money has to come from somewhere. Like all of this work isn't being crowdsourced. It's not like multimillionaires financing their fantasy projects. No, it's like studio executives are the ones who are financing everything. They have their own questionable choices of how a lot of these stories should be told.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what it is that you could have a showrunner, you could have a director who is doing what they're told.
Yeah.
Who's trying to deliver a project as this executive wanted it, as corporate wanted it.
Right.
And this is another thing that like might be hard for some people to accept. You can love something. You can love Star Wars. You can have written the perfect Digimon fan series. But just because you love something doesn't mean that the people who are going to work every day to make something share your love for it.
All right.
Yeah. Like I love there's loads of shows that I love. Like I one of my favorite TV shows is Degrassi.
Really,
I
I
love
never would
Degrassi.
have been able to tell.
I love Degrassi. That doesn't mean that the people who are actually on it share my love for it.
Right.
For them, it's a job. And it can be upsetting to hear that like, oh, the cast members of Degrassi aren't as close as you would like them to be, or these Power Ranger actors can't really do the same stunts that their characters could do. Because like, as good as Power Rangers are when it comes to stunts, remember a lot of them are acting. A lot of them are learning to do flips and kicks and
Oh yeah.
everything
I mean, like
as they're
especially
filming.
yeah. I mean, back in the day, they were just trying to get their money's worth out of these people. Now they're just like, yeah, we can't afford for you to get hurt, so you're maybe throwing a punch, but that's about as much as we're having you do. The rest is
Right.
going to be a Japanese guy in a wig.
Exactly. And just because you don't like that, yeah, I know that's going to upset some people. That for you, this thing is it's something you have such a deep connection to. But for a lot of the people who are actually showing up to set at 6 in the morning
Yeah.
till 6 at night, this is how they pay their bills.
Yeah.
This is how they eat. This is how they have purpose.
Hmm.
This is how they wake up and have something to do for the day.
Yeah.
And I know that upsets some people. Or so, you might even think that if someone doesn't share your rabid obsession, that they are killing the brand, but that's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the internet and all that type of stuff is just kind of created, it's created like online fan communities, and that's cool because like people have places they can go to express, their love of things and find community and all that, especially like for niche things like this. But you can kind of get yourself in like echo chambers really quickly,
Mm.
and you can kind of just I don't know it, people can like really disconnect themselves from reality and how misinterpret how things are as opposed to what they think they are.
Yeah.
Because
It's
it's like, yeah, like, and the thing is like it's hard to tell like what's justified and what's not, because like I mean there is marketing fumbles and the way things are handled. Like no studio handles every production right.
no, yeah. I've to I love Star Wars, I really do, but
Mhm.
I have friends who Star Wars is their Power Rangers,
Right.
and I've like the to hear them say it like Star Wars under Disney's stewardship has been like the worst. Oh, it can't get any lower than this.
Mhm.
Oh, Leia is Mary Poppins in space. Yeah, it really is hard to tell when you're filming something. Like no one sets out to make a bad. I don't think so. I should be made clear. I don't think that anyone sets out to make a bad show or movie.
No.
There's a certain point where you can kind of tell what direction it's going in.
Yeah.
You can like sometimes like you can hear there's plenty of actors who have said that they knew they were working on stinkers, but there's just as many who were like, oh, this is how I knew I was going to be in one of those movies, one of those like generation defining movies. But a lot of times, like I don't know, I'd say about like 70% of movies that exist are just like okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's very few, like, of anything, really, where you can just be like, oh, yeah, I 100% know what that is. I get what that is. It's great.
yeah.
And I feel like that's just because, like, there's so many different tastes people have and
Right.
expectations people have when it comes to TV and film.
Right. But again, like whether or not you personally love and connect with something, it's still, I still feel it's important to recognize that a lot of work goes into it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they grind for it. They put their bodies on the line, their mental health on the line, uh, their personal relationships on the line, in a lot of cases, for the sake of their chosen career field, the way that they are earning a living.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's most people don't see all of the like nitty gritty stuff, and that's just wow. That's all like pre-production. I didn't even really get into like post-production of like editing, color correcting, like
We'll bring
score.
Adam back on the show to talk about all that because he knows that all
Right.
too well.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's like the job doesn't stop once the cameras start rolling. I'd say like about half of the job is done.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's like it really is this great big machine with a lot of very complex moving parts. And most people are just gonna judge it based on like what is presented to them,
Mm-hmm.
did this joke land, or did this scene make you cry, or like should this scene be like no one really connected with it, so maybe we should just cut it, we'll put it in the DVDs, if and people can make of that what they will.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's, and then there's also the whole like again sometimes what's important, what I am just gonna throw out there. This is purely editorializing. This is not professional. This is not academic. Sometimes the people who are in charge of like what survives, what makes it, your big studio execs, they are just mean,
Yeah.
petty individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes a good show or movie gets the axe because maybe they're trying to settle an old score or some pettiness from the
Oh
past, and
yeah, the
it's like,
entire industry is just
yeah,
incredibly petty.
you've got beef with this one director, so even though their show is really popular, you put them through the hell of like not confirming whether or not the show is going to be renewed for another season, or if the movie is going to get a sequel, but still make them do all of the work of promoting it because you want them to suffer.
Right.
Because yeah, it's like these are not nice people who get to those positions.
No. And I think all
Yeah,
of this is like a big lack of. I mean, this is kind of like general, just like lacking empathy, and
yeah,
like I think a big thing, a lot of it has to do with the internet and just kind of like having letting everyone have access to a public forum where they can like just basically vent their thoughts or whatever. Um, like I think a lot of people feel like they can't feel a certain way about stuff, like sometimes, and you can, but there's ways to communicate the way you're feeling about stuff, and there's also specific places and people to talk about those things with. And I think
yeah,
in the Ranger space, and that's the most experience I have with in terms of online fan communities, a lot of the problem that I see is people involving unnecessarily involving others in conversations that shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
and
Um,
vice versa, people in production on the production side involving themselves in conversations they shouldn't be a part of either. And it's hard to like determine what those boundaries are and what they look like,
mm,
because it's like because like a producer or an actor or anyone can have like the best intentions in mind when they're trying to interact with a fan on the internet, right? And just like try to explain the method behind this one thing or whatever. Um, but because like it's a public forum and you start doing that, it kind of like sets this precedent that like people have access to you all the time, and it's really hard. Like spaces like Twitter more so make this like really difficult to like moderate, and I
mm,
think it's like important for stuff like this, at least when when it comes to like communication between like creatives, you know, like actors, directors, all that type of stuff, and just like the viewer. I think it's important that those conversations happen in moderated spaces, so that way
yeah.
you can have you can actually have decent. I feel like you have better conversation that way, because you can bring up, you know, like a bullet point that, you know, like maybe something didn't make sense to you or whatever, and the person you ask or tell this to, you know, actor, director, writer, whoever, whatever the fuck, you know, they can explain to you the reasoning why that thing is the way it is. And even after that explanation, the person might still feel the same way about it. And I think it's just
Mm,
like kind of accepting that from both sides is just kind of hard to accept. Like, is just hard for people, because it's just
yeah.
like the creative people want everyone to like the thing that they made, and because that's just what creative people want. They just want people to like the thing that they make. um, and then when they don't get that completely, they're just like, oh well, how could we have made it better? And then like, you know, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
the way that works online is very muddy and confusing now.
Yeah. It's funny too because so this is where like something like The Simpsons is helpful as like a bit of like studying history because there's plenty of jokes from The Simpsons from 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago that have been poking fun at like how fan bases engage with creatives on the internet, and it's
Hmm.
wild that these interactions go back that far.
Right.
One of my favorite Treehouse of Horror episodes is the one with Xena, and you have the like where like the nerds are asking her like, in season 4, episode 17, you're riding on a winged Pegasus. But in one shot, but in the next shot, it's a winged unicorn. How do you explain? And Xena's just like, a wizard did it. And yeah, and so this is like decades before. This is like, sorry, not decades, like plural, but like a full decade
Hmm.
before Twitter existed. Like
Right.
there were still like even with there were still showrunners engaging with fans on message boards, or at like other like Wild West spaces,
Hmm.
and even in those other spaces, there were still fans who got a little too comfortable,
Yeah.
and creators who also got a little too uncomfortable. Sorry,
Hmm.
got a little too comfortable.
Hmm.
And so it's like, it's kind of freaky. It's like, is this just like the dynamic? Is this just like how the parasocial relationship of fan and creator is? Is it because of things like unmoderated spaces like Twitter, it's interesting. I'm still figuring this out myself. It's just like, yeah, it's just
Yeah,
really
I mean, I
interesting.
think they existed before Twitter, because like conventions and stuff like that did happen.
Yeah,
They
convention
just weren't
I'd
as
say like more what
popularized
you
as
were
they are
saying.
now.
Yeah, a little more like a moderated space, or just more like a controlled environment, because you do have that outside like third party of the moderator.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It's just hard to
but yeah,
gauge because, like, I mean, like you said, like once these people get paid for their gig or whatever, they're not getting paid for anything else after that. So if they decide to like talk to people on Twitter or stuff, I mean, they're not getting paid for that. It's just something they're kind of doing out of their own volition. There's no obligation or anything to do that. So it's like you do have the right
yeah,
to do that, but should you?
and at that point, I feel like you aren't they aren't like owed they don't owe the studio or the execs or whoever their silence anymore, so they are free to be as unhinged as they want to be,
Right? Yeah.
like what tea they decide to spill. um and where was I going? Uh yeah, it's like you said, they want to like have the thing they made and worked and put their time and energy in, uh, be liked, but also, you also do have to accept that it is a gig. They might not have the same love or adoration for it that you do,
Hmm.
but it doesn't minimize the work that they put in,
Right.
the hours that they toiled, the endless meetings with executives making decisions that I'm sure even they thought were questionable, but they
Oh,
go
for
along with
sure.
it because,
I
like,
mean that's the whole thing, isn't it? Is it's just like entertainment. It's just like compromise after compromise until you do something like everyone is basically happy with.
right.
And sometimes you just kind of like sneak in something that you wanted to do and hope nobody notices.
God, it's like, oh God, there's this old American dad joke. There's like a line from it where like Steve and his friends were like, "Well, we were gonna be men," and like this one guy is like, "Well, you might have thought you were gonna become men this way, or perhaps an equally valid preparation for adulthood is an evening of disappointment and compromise."
Yes, I remember that one.
I'm like, oh my God. And yeah, and I can say, like in my own experience, and this is also where I'm like a bit more sympathetic to the people on the production end, is because in my own experience
Hmm.
with producing a TV show, there was a lot of disappointment and
Right. No,
compromise.
yeah, for sure.
Hey, it brought me to where I was, to the point where I'm not at now, where I can look at something. I think for me, this is just me personally now, and like how I've been relating to media since I produced my first TV show, was that I don't know. I look at TV shows and movies that I hated growing up, or that I thought, oh, this killed this, or this is like the new low point of cinema. This is the worst thing ever made. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like trying to find something good in it.
Hmm.
If it's a TV show, if it's a season of a TV show that I didn't like, I'm like, well, you know what? There's this to like, or appreciating that other people get enjoyment from it, and like for me, it's just not fun anymore to shit on like TV shows and movies,
Right.
unless it's something like so uniquely awful, or just reeking of such corporate greed and cynicism that it's like, yeah, there's no redeeming qualities from this. But even then, I'll just be like, oh, it just wasn't for me. I'm just like not gonna engage with it any further, or just like, yeah, just loads of things that I'm just like, if it doesn't interest me, if I don't think it looks good, I don't need to see it.
Hmm.
I don't need to. shit on something that people worked on to make myself feel smarter or feel like a better creator. It's just like, yeah, wasn't for me. I didn't
Yeah.
see it. Can't pass judgment on it either way.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, it's I don't know that like that might go into a realm of toxic positivity, but I don't think so. I think there's like enough bile and negativity for media that it's like, hey, it doesn't matter if I like if you don't like how this was shot, I can still find a way to say, but like, oh hey, but yeah, there's still that one really cool shot in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, because I don't think I don't think giving something a compliment like negates any of the issues you have with something.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think the issue a lot of people have is just things are are just so polarized with everything. So you have to
Has to be
feel all
either
of
or
one
worse.
thing or all of the other thing, and there's never any room for like nuance anymore with anything. And it's just like that's not how the world works at all. Because like once you get off the internet for 5 seconds, like that's not how anything works. Everything is like not black and white. Everything not is not that simple. It's overly
Yeah.
simplistic, and people just think.
But, yeah.
I think the people who think like that are just the type of people who just never get off the internet, and I think it's really good for people to just get off the internet every now and then. That's something both of us have done the past week. Um,
Oh my
you know,
gosh, I
there's
know.
there's
So
just a lot of
busy.
stuff a lot of stuff's been going on Twitter. Um, I've been hopping in and laughing at a couple things and dipping out, man. I gotta be honest. My Twitter and Instagram are locked right now. I'm just kind of not interacting with any of it. Well, more so Twitter because Instagram I don't care about. Um,
Mm,
but like
yeah.
yeah,
Like
Twitter
even
is
at my school, TikTok is blocked while I'm on the school's Wi-Fi. I
oh
gotta say,
that's fun.
yeah, it's it actually is.
Can the
You
Gen
know,
Zs even function without TikTok?
oh, they found their ways around that, but for
Okay.
me, I'm like, oh, well, I don't need to spend more time on the clock app. So, like, even got a notification saying you spent 15 minutes less on TikTok this week than last. I'm like, can we get to 30?
can can we get to 1 minute a week?
It's like,
One
yeah, it's
TikTok every week.
yeah. And it's been so good to just talk to people. I like hearing why people love the media that they engage with. I like seeing what drew you into it, why you keep going back to it.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, like nitpicking and shitting on things that a lot of people put a lot of time and energy into, it's just not fun for me anymore.
Yeah.
Um, even if it's like something like for example, I've always loved Batman and Robin, the George Clooney Arnold Schwarzenegger movie,
Same.
but never understood why it was considered like the worst Batman movie ever. It is camp.
Right.
It's funny. It's bright and colorful. It's still Batman
Right.
though. Like Uma Thurman is like I've seen the reviews that she got from that movie saying it was like the worst performance ever. Uma Thurman is giving a drag performance through that entire movie. It
Right.
is hilarious. I love it. It's queer too. It's like very queer coded. I don't get why. I mean, well, I guess with that context, I get why people probably didn't like it when
Yeah,
it
it did
first
come
came
out in the
out. But
90s, so you know.
yeah, I I know people forget that the '90s was bad homophobic,
Hmm.
but you know, it's like and even still, like I look back at myself because I definitely was that person who was like, the only way to show you love something is by shitting on it.
Hmm.
The only way Batman can be good is if he's grim and gritty, and because of that, I missed out on Batman: The Brave and the Bold when in its original run, and that was a great show.
Hmm.
But I was just like too immature at the time to appreciate it.
Hmm.
And who knows? Maybe this is just like how I'm growing.
I think a lot of
Uh,
it has to do with age and just kind of reevaluating priorities. And I think also a lot of it is because, like, when you're younger, you don't really question the why of why things are the way they are.
mm,
I think as you get older, that kind of is something you kind of venture out to see more. And for whether I've wanted to see it or not, or get it explained to me or not, I end up finding out the reasons why things happen the way they do in media mostly. We hear the reasons why things happened the way they did, and once you have the proper context behind it, it's like, oh well, it kind of feels, it kind of just doesn't feel right to be like mad at it anymore because
yeah,
it kind of goes back to that whole empathy thing I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, like all these people are just like trying to do the best thing they can, and they had a bunch of people telling them to do this thing as much as they didn't really want to do that. They had to do it anyway because those were the people who signed their paychecks. So who are they to say no? You know, I mean, there's no point putting your financial stability on the line for for like this thing that's basically could be considered a gig, that isn't going to be around forever. um, I guess it could be admirable if you really want to go that far, but I don't know. It's just like, is it really worth it to go through all that?
yeah. Well, I guess we've got the rest of our lives to figure that out.
Right. And that's the point we'll end on tonight, you guys. I want you to think about that, okay? Like, just ruminate on that thought this week, okay?
That's how every good sermon ends.
Yes. Okay, let me go ahead and let me have the band come up on the stage.
Oh man, that was like that was triggering.
You were getting your church flashbacks, weren't you?
Oh god.
Oh god, the religious trauma just came flooding back into Colin's face.
Yeah. Fresh
uh,
wound.
oh man. All right, well, that seems like a fun little end to this little topic. I just kind of wanted to delve into, like, I don't know, just something like this. Um, I just kind of, I'm just gonna be honest. I just wanted a reason to talk to you. So
Miss you, Will.
yeah, so it was nice having you on the show, and I'm glad everyone got to. I hope you all learned something tonight, if anything. So, thank you again to Colin for joining us tonight. This was the first
Yeah.
episode with no one showing up in the chat, or at least no one sounding off in the chat. So there have been people here this whole episode. They just have
Why?
been very quiet. So thank you for being here. I did know you were here, and thank you for showing up, even if you didn't say anything. um, so yeah, I've
Now to say goodbye to all our company. MIC. No, I'm not doing
Okay, we're gonna get copyright struck. Find something public domain. You worked for a PBS. You have to know what's public domain.
Oh God.
Alright, so if you guys want to hear more of Colin's thoughts on whether it be media related stuff or Ranger related stuff, their Twitter handles right there on the screen. So go ahead and follow them. And yeah, man, next week, I don't know. I've really enjoyed having guests on, so I'm probably gonna try and figure that out. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm working on some stuff behind the scenes. That sounds like I am doing more work than I am, but I am trying to figure stuff out. But yeah, man. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Appreciate it as always. And I will see y'all next week for another Friday Night Chill. Bye.